Well, Bev, in Jerusalem, I lived here for 6 years, and one thing about Jerusalem is the traffic's notoriously bad because it's built on very ancient and narrow roads. But coming here today from the airport, there was barely any traffic. The schools have closed. They're on alert. Prime Minister Netanyahu said last night, urged Israelis to go and get enough supplies to last 72 hours. So all of that's feeding into this sort of sense that something's going to happen. Nobody quite knows what. This sort of sense that, there's something big about to happen. The Israeli army are obviously moving in force down to the southern border, on the Gaza border. So, there really is a sense that although there's already been some tragedies in this new war, that there's worse to come.
Yeah. There's the speculation about a ground offensive in Gaza. As you know from having covered this region, this could be highly dangerous and not easy for the Israeli forces that would be going in.
That's right, Bev. In the 6 years I was here, there were, in fact, 3 wars between Israel and Gaza. And there was a pattern there, often a 4 or 5 day build-up by the Israeli army. You get, all their trucks and tanks are heading south now. They like to try to get everything organised. An added complication here that they haven't had before, with as many as, more than 100 hostages. They don't know the exact number. Some people are saying 150, some of the Israeli officials. But there's the added concern that, if they do go in, where are these hostages? And also they don't want to go into Gaza City. The Israeli army has never wanted to have sort of urban conflict. They're not trained for that. It's particularly hard for any army because you can be going down a street, there can be snipers in every building, you don't know what's around the corner. It's difficult to train for that sort of combat. My own feeling is that they'll probably go in, it'll be a limited ground invasion. It won't, be any sort of permanent occupation, and I don't think they'll go into Gaza City. But I think what they'd be doing now would be trying to get whatever intelligence they can about where these hostages are. But given how clearly they had virtually no intelligence on the actual raid on Saturday morning by Hamas, then, you can question whether they've got much quality intelligence coming out of Gaza anyway.
Yeah. Talking of that, Israel had been very divided in the lead up to this. There'd been issues with, major changes to the Supreme Court. There'd been protests on the streets. Is there the sense now, do you think, that this horrific attack by Hamas is going to reunite the nation in terms of this kind of warfare going forward?
Well, certainly if you look back at the history of Israel, whenever they've gone to war, the country tends to come together for that period of time. Like at the moment, there's more or less a national unity government. Yair Lapid, the opposition leader, Benny Gantz, who of course ran for Prime Minister himself, former head of the armed forces, have all basically pledged their support. But you're right, Bev. The context of this is a very badly divided society. Hundreds of thousands of people have demonstrated over trying to remove the powers of the court. So the politicians, Netanyahu's government and the politicians would have had more say. Also, there's been growing tensions here between the Israelis and Palestinians. For example, over the last year or so before this happened, there are something like 200 Palestinians had been killed. That's in the normal business as usual, the occupation at East Jerusalem. So that's 4 or so a week. So the tensions had been building. The Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is, sort of not far behind me down there in the old city, that's become a flashpoint. It's an extremely right-wing government. Many of their members and supporters have insisted that they should be able to go to Al-Aqsa Mosque. The Palestinians here say that that's a desecration of their holy sites. So, of course, none of this is to justify anything that Hamas did. But it's important that we understand the context of this. This didn't just suddenly come out of nowhere. This has been bubbling on and off, those 3 wars I covered. This is inevitable. This sort of tension and conflict, not what happened Saturday, but the overall conflict is inevitable when at the heart of it you have a military occupation over 3 million people in the West Bank. And so, you know, in the West Bank, those 3 million Palestinians wake up every morning under an Israeli occupation that they don't want. So that feeds into the context. For people who haven't been here, it's important to understand that context.
Yeah, indeed. This attack by Hamas was on a scale probably not seen for many, many years. Of course, Iran has denied any involvement, but there is a lot of reporting to the contrary. Do you think Hamas is going to continue to escalate if they do have the backing of an Iran?
Well, the Wall Street Journal has reported, of course, that they believe there was a meeting between Hamas and Iranian officials a week or so ago, and that was essentially decisive. US officials have been very careful not to support that. As to the Hamas situation, I think it's clear now. I think the international community realises what happened Saturday was a war crime on a massive scale. The killing of those 260 people who were at that party, that outdoor concert, is obviously, in my view, by any definition, a war crime. They were civilians, they're not combatants. 100 or so people in a kibbutz mown down, again a war crime. So I think the international community has certainly, much of it has reacted very badly to this. In terms of Iran, there's been a bit of flashpoint on the northern border with Hezbollah. And I think it's important to watch Hezbollah. They're, of course, a proxy of Iran. They're the main Shia Muslim army, if you like, military operation based in Lebanon, southern Lebanon, on the border here with Israel. They've got 100,000 or so missiles south of the Litani River, all pointing towards Israel. So should Iran decide to activate that, then it dramatically escalates. That's the reason the US aircraft carrier is coming here right now, and that's the reason that Joe Biden and Benjamin Netanyahu are saying very clearly, if anybody wants to take advantage of this current instability, they do it at their own peril. Because I think if Hezbollah attacked northern Israel, I have no doubt Israel would then hit Iran, because they would see Iran as responsible. So, no, hopefully we don't get any of that. Hopefully things can find some sort of calm. But, Bev, I haven't ever seen the Middle East at this sort of tinderbox level before. Yeah. I mean, what happened here in Israel the other day, in southern Israel, is almost unbelievable. That Hamas fighters, up to 1,000 of them, could break the barrier, come in, and then for hours, essentially, roam without being challenged. Yeah. This is the strongest army in the Middle East here in Israel. Where were they?
It's a question that I think still needs answering, but as you say, very unstable times. John, we'll talk in coming days. Thanks so much.